Welcome to the Homeschool Together podcast. Where one working mom and a stay-at-home dad help you navigate the nuts and bolts of the growing and dynamic world of homeschooling.
With a focus on early learners, like me.
All the ins and outs of building and maintaining your homeschool life.
Homeschool.
Find out tips and tricks to make things like this easier.
I'm reading.
And ultimately, enjoy educating your kids. And what's that last thing?
Have fun together. Did I do good, Daddy?
Yeah, you did, sweetie. Good job. Hello and welcome back to Homeschool Together. We want to give a special thanks to everybody who supported us with the latest Africa guide that was released last week. We greatly appreciate all the support and the people picking up that guide. If you are currently or thinking about going around the world journey with Build Your Library and Torchlight.
Or want to do your own unit study on one of the African countries. It's a really great guide for that.
Really great guide for that. Thank you so much for that. Speaking of going around the world, Ariel, they all got to listen to our getting, fit journey. They listened to all these wonderful episodes.
Yeah, we did this entire month of self-care
and everything, but they were listening to it and they thought we were putting these episodes out in real time, but this is really effectively the first time we've been back in the quote unquote studio in about 2 months. Right. Ariel, where were we?
Yeah, so we spent the entire month of April in Ireland. And we decided to take a family trip / kind of work thing and homeschool and do some world schooling in Ireland. So while you guys were all listening to self-care, and by the way, we really appreciate everyone who gave us good feedback on that, and we hope that it was helpful and you liked that kind of deviation from the normal. But today we wanted to recap on our trip, how we plan to homeschool there. I think this is going to be really interesting.
Road schooling with the boozes.
Yeah. Now that we're in this post-pandemic world where a lot of us have done remote work, it's really opened up the possibilities.
Yeah, we're blessed to be able to have that.
And a lot of people are, right? A lot of people are either working remotely full-time or have the ability, like we did. I work a hybrid schedule, so I work 2 days a week in the at home and 3 days in the office. And I was... it was so great that my manager was willing to let me do 2 weeks remotely from Ireland and then take 2 weeks of vacation. So I was able to take a month off instead of having to take a month of vacation days because, spoiler alert, I don't have that many vacation days.
Well, and then the funny thing is they took advantage of the fact that you were going to be there.
Right.
And you got to do a kind of little intermediate trip to the UK and Liverpool,
and do some customer visits.
Liverpool and Manchester. And that actually worked out really well for the company. And they were actually very happy that you did that because you as your own work is your work. But that worked out really, really good. And it's opening up the opportunity to maybe do this more often. Right.
So to give you all some background about what are we thinking? We interviewed Megan and Daniel Tenney, and Matt will link that in the show notes. It was a great interview
We've now interviewed a couple road schoolers.
We have, but these were the ones that sparked it for us. And I think the thing is, when we think road schoolers, we usually think somebody who's got an RV and they're traveling around the U.S., which I think sounds really cool. If that's you, I think that sounds awesome. We want to talk to you because I think that's really neat. And it's a really neat concept. And some folks just do it for the summer, or some people do it all the time. So Megan and Daniel didn't do that. They had like a minivan or something, but they traveled around the U.S. and they stayed in Airbnbs. Yeah. And then they went overseas and they went through Ireland and England and a bunch of other countries. And again, they kind of like Airbnb'd it. And we were really curious, how do you do that, right? Because the lodging is so expensive. And they let us in on this great little secret, and it has revolutionized our world, which is if you go to Airbnb and you stay for a month, if you stay for 28 days, you can get significant discount pricing on that stay. Now, this is up to the host individually. Every host is going to do something different. So you may have one host who's going to give you $300 off of your stay. You could have another one like our host that gave us $1,000 off of our stay because we were willing to stay a month, and they like to, lock somebody in for that whole time. It's worth it for them. We went on kind of a shoulder season for them. It's not the peak, which we highly recommend doing that. That was really great. The weather was still pretty good, and we got better pricing and less crowds.
The weather was better there. Ireland and Pacific Northwest, especially in Seattle, Vancouver region, can tend to have very similar weather patterns. A very maritime climate, very cold and very rainy. It turned out to be actually nicer there than it was here the whole time. Yeah,
we have some gorgeous pictures. We had so many. Our first day there was like beautiful and sunny, gorgeous. And wasn't t-shirt weather. It was always kind of windy and a little cool, but it was beautiful. Yeah. So after interviewing Megan and Daniel, we started to look this up, and we were like, wow, like we could actually do this. So we looked up, and we found that we could get a townhouse in Killarney. We decided to stay in Killarney.
So this would be in the southwest of
Ireland. Yeah. Now, we have never traveled internationally with our children.
Once we did with the Spain.
We did. When our older daughter was a toddler, we went to Spain for like a week and a half.
Yeah.
But that kind of doesn't count. She was on board. She was there for the ride,
she was in the baby carrier 90% of the time. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, she toddled around. We did have to stop at every park in Barcelona, but
that was fun.
We haven't done it when they've been older. So this was kind of new for us.
Both of them.
Yeah. With two. And
I
how do you
believe
manage
this was
that?
the first time we've ever traveled with both of them, because the youngest was born the year before the pandemic. And so she was fairly young when
she was like 6 months,
6 or 7 months when the pandemic started. And so, that this is the first time we've actually traveled as one big family, and actually the first real vacation we've had since the pandemic.
Yeah. So, when you're going to start back into it, go big.
Yeah, go big.
So after they told us that, we were like, I wonder if we could do this.
Yeah.
And, just for reference and transparency, we were able to get this townhouse in Killarney. It was a 2-bed, 2-bath, beautiful townhouse,
2-story, full kitchen, living room, dining area. I mean, it was really nice.
The whole thing.
We'll make sure to
we'll link it because it was really nice.
Yeah, we'll link it down below.
But we got it for like $2,300 for 28 days.
It was amazing.
It was an amazing deal, and it was in a prime choice location too. We could have stayed cheaper, but it was in a great location, and you're really tall, and we needed a king size bed. So, which is a hard thing to find in Europe.
Just bring her on.
So anyways, like we were like, wow, we could, like, that's not that much money to stay for 4 weeks someplace.
That's amazing.
And that made the whole thing more monetarily viable, right? Mm-hmm. Obviously your airfare is, one cost that you've got, but the lodging is huge. We almost paid as much for the rental car as we paid to stay.
It was amazing how expensive the rental cars are.
So that's kind of what got us interested in this. We interviewed them, and we started thinking like, I wonder where we could go. And if we could go for this length of time, could we maybe like align this with our homeschooling year in future years? If we're going to do ancient civilizations, could we go to Greece? Mm-hmm. If we're going to be studying the Renaissance, could we go to Italy? Mm-hmm. Like we were starting to think about, next time we do dinosaurs, maybe we do some time in the Western U.S. and go see some dinosaur bones and
Utah and
national
Badlands
parks
and Montana, and see if we can see something.
Right. So we kind of it opened our eyes about like, wow, maybe we could travel this way. And one of the things for us is about, when you travel with kids, especially, I mean, obviously it's hard for anyone to acclimate to new time zones. It's 8 hours difference in Ireland. And we were, acutely aware of the fact that when we did go to Spain, even though our daughter was just along for the ride, that first two nights was really bad.
It took a while for her
those were brutal
to get back onto schedule. Yeah.
Yeah. And so then we lost 2 days at the beginning of a 9-day trip. And that's kind of rough.
We made the best of it as we could, but it did cause a little bit of disruption in the evening when they were getting on schedule. And then on top of that, both of our kids were going to have to share a bed. It was a large bed, it was a queen size bed, but they had never slept in the same room together. They were going to have to.
We weren't sure about that.
We were going to use pillows as a DMZ. It was very funny. Like I know I was stressing about it. I'm like, this is not going to go well.
Right.
But it's amazing what kids can do.
They're resilient. Yeah. But I think that knowing that we had that experience in Spain, we were thinking, gosh, if we're ever going to travel internationally with our kids, you can't just go for a week or 2 weeks because you're going to lose this time, and then you're running
You're trying to do as much as you possibly can.
Right. We went to Europe before we had our oldest daughter, as kind of like a pre-kids last hurrah.
It was the baby moon.
Yeah, well, we weren't pregnant yet, but it was our like last hurrah of being, single, no kids, and we can do this, just us. So we went on this big trip, and it was 4 weeks, and that was like amazing. But man, by like the third week, we were exhausted.
Yeah, because we were moving.
You're trying to see everything. And we went to a bunch of countries.
Ariel's a project manager, but I distinctly remember our giant like 2-inch binder that had like everything in sleeves. Okay, here's our next location.
Oh yeah.
Here's the hotel rental. Here's
we had all this
here's
stuff.
the train tickets to go from here to here, and
here's
here's
trains,
the things we got to do, and
planes,
automobiles.
Yeah, we rented cars. We did it all. We went to like 7 countries. It was crazy. And we saw a lot of great things, but we were running at this pace, and I knew that if we went, we knew if we went to Europe or anywhere really, and we decided to try to cram everything into 10 days or whatever, that our kids were going to be super cranky.
Yeah.
Because that's just, they can't run at those kind of speeds. They're going to have jet lag. They're going to be cranky. This, for the money that you spend for the airfare and all of that stuff, like we just didn't want to regret this. So we thought maybe we'll take a page out of their book and we'll try to slow this down, and we'll see, is this something our family even likes to do? Will we get like super sick of each other after 4 weeks? We hate each other.
We were looking at it as like, can we go somewhere and not vacation? I mean, we're obviously vacationing, but essentially, can we set down roots for a month and pretend like we're living here?
Yeah.
And that was kind of our mentality, because the people we've interviewed, even Michelle Ocean, that we just about a week ago, listening to them when they talk about when they get to a location, they settle down and they like begin to pretend like they're living there.
Right.
And we really tried to take that to heart in this, where we weren't going to be hopping around, and that's where the long-term rental at the Airbnb really helped kind of solidify us. Like, okay, we're going to pick a region of the country, and we have a reach because we have a car of 2.5, 3 hours in a kind of a big arcing circle. And what can you do from that location? And what was our plan on our day-to-day? Are we going to travel every single day? Are we going to go see a castle every day? We're going to go do this every single day? Or are we going to have down days where we go into town and we just watch a movie and walk around town or go to the park? We had to really think about what do we do now on a daily basis, and how do we translate that to where we're staying and what we're doing, and how do we find a new normal but that looks a lot similar to what we were doing here, and what is topical to what the podcast is about, and what we're really what we're here to listen about is like, how do we translate our homeschooling there, right? How do we bring it there? Because we're in our parent partnership right now. We're taking a month off. We had a lot of legwork we had to do around that, because we were not going to be in class for a certain amount of days. We're we're going to be docked and demerited as homeschoolers. Like, we were going to be we were going to hit a threshold where they said, okay, we need to do something special, and that was like a Zoom call every for 30 minutes once a week. I think that was the mitigation.
Yeah. So it was not hard at all with our parent partnership. They were super supportive. They said, yeah, can you do a phone call? And we decided on Zoom because it's a little more personal. Our daughter being only first grade, it's easier for her to do video. So once a week, we had this 30-minute call with her teacher. It was easy. It met all our requirements. We didn't have any homework or things we had to bring with us. They were incredibly supportive.
Every one of their classes, we she has 7 classes, so we clarified with them, before we left.
With each teacher,
and said, hey, what do you want us to do? They're like, have fun, go enjoy yourself.
The sewing teacher's like, sew something if you find some fabric. The painting teacher was like, draw or paint something if you feel inspired. I mean, they all were just very, very supportive.
Yeah, it was super easy. It was kind of funny because we were stressing about it more than it actually ended up being, where they were like, oh, go have fun. This is your homeschooling. That's the whole point of this.
So I think to kind of help set the framework, like, let's talk about why we chose Ireland. Like, you could go anywhere, and why did we choose to go foreign, and why did we choose to go to Ireland, and what our thinking was behind that.
I think from the first point is it's actually one of the shortest international places we can go to. That's not like Canada,
right?
Like Canada is just north of us, and while we love our Canadian brothers and sisters north of us, we don't treat that as like international. It's
not different enough from
it's not different enough.
us,
So for us
here.
flying from Seattle, the quickest way that we could get to somewhere that, kind of interests us was, okay, we got to go to Europe, and Ireland was that first touch, and predominantly English speaking. They have Gaelic is like kind of the second language, and there's Gaelic on all the signs, and we heard people speaking Gaelic, predominantly English speaking. So if our daughters had to engage with somebody, they could speak to them. So that was cool. Also, it was a place that you and I have never been to.
Right.
That was, I think, very important.
I think the English speaking was important for our first, our kids have never traveled before,
Never.
like we talked about.
And I wanted them to potentially engage with, and we'll talk a little bit more about this, but like with kids potentially and with adults, if they go into a store and they want to buy something or whatever, they can ask a question. Or if we go on a tour through a castle or something of that nature, I want them to understand the person that they're talking to or listening from. And, going to an English speaking country was an easy pick.
Yeah, it's true. Our kids are 7.5 and almost 4. Yeah. So we felt like we didn't really want to go someplace where there was going to be a language barrier for this first trip. We chose to go international because we were, as I think everyone, we were just itching to do something different after COVID.
Yeah, once we decided on it, it was really fast. Like, it's very funny because that's how, a lot of times that's how we act.
Yeah, we like deliberate, and then we decide, and it's like, boom.
Decide, boom, and it's like everything is falling in place. But
And so the other thing is, for having young children, so we want to go someplace foreign. Yep. We have young kiddos.
We have some heritage in Ireland as well.
We have some family heritage. Yep, we're super pasty European heritage. Both of us.
It's more on your side. I'm more of the.
You too.
A little bit.
Yeah, you as well. So we both have Irish heritage. So one of the things about Ireland that really drew us was that it required very little of our kids. And what I say when I say that's like, let's say we went to Italy and we were going to go to like Florence or something. We're there, which we've been to Florence. It was wonderful. Just ourselves. Yeah, just ourselves. We're there to see sculptures. We're there to look at artwork. We're there to appreciate architecture, and that asks and go to museums and stuff like that. And that asks a lot of your kids,
especially a 4-year-old.
Right. It asks a lot of your kids.
I think the older one would be fine with it.
She would be good.
She might get a little bored after a while, but I think she'd go with it.
She could go with the stories, right?
It's the firecracker.
Right. The little one. Our older daughter definitely could get into hearing the stories about the different people who made the art and who built the buildings and all that stuff. Like she'd be fine. But you're right. Our younger daughter's almost 4, and we wanted something that just didn't ask a whole lot of her, because it would be unrealistic for us to have this expectation that we could go and do museums and stuff with her. No. It's just
and we did. We tried.
We did a couple museums.
We are very happy we didn't do that as the main thrust.
Right. We only did it a couple of times. It was very difficult to do.
Yeah.
We didn't get
into it.
It was worth it, but still it was a little challenging. So the thing about Ireland is a lot of the stuff is outside. Right, you're going to go see castles and ruins of castles and ruins of abbeys, and you're going to see beautiful beaches, and there's going to be hills to run around and play, and standing stones to go see and stuff like that. It's very
it's like a giant park.
Right. It's very exploratory, so you can kind of like let them run, and they can go, and they're not really going to hurt anything. They don't have to be quiet. So we really wanted to choose that. And the other thing that really drew us to Ireland, obviously we haven't been there, and it was kind of on our bucket list of things we wanted to do, was that it was very low key country as well. It's not going to be super busy. I was a little bit worried about our 4-year-old can tend to be like a flight risk. So, we wanted to go someplace that wasn't super busy. I didn't want to worry about her as much, being around. I wanted everything to be a bit calmer. And we had heard that the Irish were super empathetic about kids. Yeah. They were really good with the kids.
Accommodating.
Yes, very accommodating. And that was absolutely our experience. Yeah. Everyone that we met, I don't think there was a single Irish person that we met that wasn't very warm and welcoming and friendly. They loved to chat. And they were really great with our kids. Yep. So it was something that we thought like, okay, this is a good start. This is a good way to ease ourselves into international travel. And if it doesn't go well, like we're not asking a lot of the kids.
Exactly. We also thought about, our health journey. Like, can we go somewhere where we can do a lot of walking,
right?
A lot of hiking, a lot of activity. Our kids are okay with that. And we prepared because the place we picked is right next to a national park that had a bunch of paved walking trails that we could go right out of our door, right onto a trail, and go right into town.
Or go to the castle.
Or go to the castle. It was wonderful. Ross Castle.
We had a castle right down the road from us, which was amazing to be able to just walk to a castle.
And it was funny. It was kind of our tag team evening stroll. Be like, okay, I'm going for my walk. And you got the kids? Yep. I'm going down to the castle.
Yeah, I'd go running to the castle.
And then you'd come home and I'd go walking down to the castle. It was really cool.
Or we'd go, there's a family at sunset.
Yeah.
And the paths also led us to town, which was great, and led us to the playground.
And we knew this. And so what we did is we prepared with getting scooters for both of our kids.
Yeah, we got razor scooters for both kids.
For them as well. So really helped to facilitate our walking, our desire to walk. Like that's something that we would like to do when we like to go, traveling is we call them walkcations, where we like to go on trails and go walking, not hiking as much, but just walking.
Yeah.
Just so that we could have a lot of time that's not in front of computers, not in front of phones, and we talk. And we talk all the time. And so that's another big choice that we had with respect to, why we chose Ireland and why we chose this area, is that there was a lot of walking available and the kids could, go scooting and just untethered scooting ahead of us. We didn't have to worry about them on a road or anything like that. So that was another big concern that we tried to gear something towards, what would be entertaining for them, but also give us the time to have a little bit of downtime and relaxing time and being able to, communicate between each other and everything.
Yeah. Yeah. We prepared, the kids obviously can't walk the distances that we would want to walk. So we felt like the razor scooters were a great way that we could get the distance we needed, because of course we wanted to eat and drink, differently than we would at home. Yeah. So we wanted those extra steps because we really wanted to feel good about ourselves. And that was the best part actually of the trip, because that was in Killarney National Park, and it was so gorgeous there that it was such a relaxing experience. And the razor scooters were perfect. They fold up, so we just put them in our suitcase, packed them in our checked bag, threw the helmets in the car seat bag, and it worked out really well for us to take those with us. They were totally a necessity on this trip.
It became almost a hard requirement. Like I'm so happy we brought them. Otherwise, it would have been really frustrating. Like we would have been asking them to walk a lot farther than they would normally, and they would have been complaining a lot.
There's no way that our little one could walk. It was about a 15-minute walk into town or to the playground.
Mile and a half to a playground, yeah.
Right, and our kids would scooter all the way there, and it was really, really great. So that worked out terrifically for us.
We prepped them for that too.
We did. We prepped for like 2 months. Because our little one.
Yeah, we did a lot of training.
When we started, we got the razor scooter. Both of the scooters, our older daughter took to it immediately. She was like, "This is great. This is awesome." And our younger daughter was not she couldn't do it. She kept complaining about it, didn't want to scoot. And so we had to just kind of work through that so that she could get good enough to use it.
But now she's just as fast as her older sister. Yeah.
So before we left, we worked really hard to get her to the point where she was really good on the razor scooter. Both girls were great on it. They liked it. We took them to the skate park. They were totally prepped, so that when we went there, they were like, "Oh yeah, scooters." And it was funny when we came home, we thought they'd be sick of the scooters, but they weren't.
They're still all about them.
Yeah, they still love the scooters, and the scooters was really, really good. So we highly recommend something like that. So
and then another reason why we chose Ireland is one of our family favorite movies. We watch it every single year. Is The Quiet Man, and that was also shot.
An old romance with John Wayne and Maureen O'Hara,
and we watch it every year. And there was an opportunity. They have the town that they filmed all the outdoor scenes. All the indoor scenes were, in some sound studio in Los Angeles, but all the outdoor scenes in the town was all shot in a little town called Cong, just outside of Ashford Castle.
Yeah,
and
in County Mayo.
In County Mayo, north of Galway. And so we took an opportunity. It took a couple days, and we stayed there before we went to Dublin for a couple days. So we predominantly were in this one section, but we took another opportunity to go see this place where, it was a movie that we adore and we watch it every year. So we had a chance to go and make a pilgrimage to Cong. And we're not the only people.
Right. It was all Americans.
All these Americans love to go to this little town and see, where John Wayne and Maureen O'Hara fell in love and everything. So it was really, really cool to to be there. That was another reason why we chose Ireland, is to fulfill that as well.
Yeah, we were pretty excited about that. So we booked 28 days at the Airbnb. We only stayed 26 of them because we left early. We drove up like 3.5 hours or so to Cong for 2 days, and then we went to Dublin
and we finished
for 2 days.
We finished in Dublin. We debated whether or not we wanted to do Dublin on the front end or the back end, but I think it was really smart that, we were able to come in, get rid of the car, get into town, stay in town, and then get an Uber to the airport or the taxi to the airport.
We wanted to have a really easy start to the trip because we knew the kids were going to be jet lagged. Their circadian rhythms were all going to be
We didn't want to
screwed
start
up.
that in like a really busy city.
Yeah, we didn't want to start it in something like we wanted to go. Mm-hmm. When we first arrived, we got there. Our first goal for the very first day, because we arrived at like noon. We drove all the way to the townhouse. We got there at 6 p.m. Our first dinner was McDonald's. We had Irish McDonald's. They have curry sauce for their fries. It was really good.
Pretty good, yeah.
And mozzarella sticks. Anyways, we were just like, we need something that the girls are not we didn't need our 4-year-old to have to learn some new foods right like that minute when she was so tired. So we went and got Irish McDonald's. It was good. And then the next day we had the lofty goal of going to the grocery store and going to the playground. And that was it for the whole first day that we were in Ireland. And that was wonderful because that was the kind of days we had. So we had big days where it was like, hey, today we are going to go and tour a castle or an abbey, or we're going to go do this event.
Two castles and
right. We're going to have a big sightseeing day. And then the next day we're going to go see Mario at the movie theater because it's going to be rainy. And peaches. Or one day there's an indoor water park. So we went and did that one day. And the next day we just hung out at home. We read books. Yep. We caught up on homeschool stuff. We just didn't really do a whole lot. So the mix of those high days and down days.
Yeah, high days and down days I think was a big thing. And then in the middle you had the gap where Mr. Matt here achieved his international stay-at-home daddy homeschooling badge. That got me to, I took care of children alone in an international country. So
yeah, we didn't, when we made the plans for the trip, I was supposed to work 2 weeks remotely at the beginning. And then the last 2 weeks I was going to be on vacation. And the time change is great because it meant that I was working from like 4:00 in the afternoon to midnight basically, every day.
And that worked out really nice actually, because you would sleep in the morning and I would wake up with the kids early. And I would get homeschool done, and we would do all our, and we'll get a little bit into, what we brought and what education we tried to focus on at that time. But, I was able to do the homeschool in the morning. You would wake up then, and then we could, do something through most of the day, come back just in time for, about half the time our kiddo would nap, the youngest would nap. And then you would start your day, and then I would go and maybe take them to the park or take them into town or do whatever. It worked out really nice with your schedule being so shifted into the evening.
Right. It actually worked great. I had no problems working. But like 2 weeks before we were about to leave, they said, hey, would you fly to Liverpool for a few days?
Yeah, right.
And so I said, yeah, okay. So it wasn't really our plan. And it was actually the very end of my working time that I had planned there. Yeah. You and the girls drove me to the airport. I flew out and I was gone for 4 nights. And then came back. So that was definitely kind of a unique thing we hadn't planned on. We had to kind of roll with the punches. So it all worked out really well. And I think for us, we really tried to seize some of those local opportunities. Once we knew where we were going to be, we looked at the touristy things, but we also looked at what all the like events and things were going on.
And then you stumbled upon the Girl Guides.
Yeah, well, I reached out because our daughters are Girl Scout, and I know they have Girl Scouts. A lot of them are called Girl Guides around the world. And I was like, I wonder, we're there long enough. Can we like make a meeting? So I emailed, the contact info for them, and it kind of got through person to person until I did finally get a leader right there, and they invited us to their troop meeting. And we went, and I have to say for us, it might have been one of the highlights of the trip for our older daughter and I, because they were so warm and welcoming. They
not only did they invite you to one of their meetings, which was amazing because they had a cake for you, and
they formally inducted her into their troop. They wrote to Dublin to get permission to make her an honorary member of their troop.
It was amazing.
Of the Girl Guides. It was amazing.
And then the next day was this regional fun day that they hadn't put on since the beginning of COVID. Just so happened to be that was the day that that was going on, and then they allowed her to attend that as
right.
well.
There was like 200 girl guides.
What was the funny thing? It was they have very different uniforms than we have here with the blue vest and the blue hat or whatever. But it was funny. Somebody had come in, one of the Irish women, or
one of the older. She had done some work in the U.S. She'd had some friends or whatever, and she pointed at our daughter because we had her bring her uniform, and she was like, "Who brought the American?" She's like, "Where'd you guys get an American?"
It wandered in.
It was funny. Street. So you have all the girl guides, and then our daughter. She made the newspaper.
Oh, it was wild.
It was super cool. They were wonderful.
But this was a great example of, like, if you are at home and you're listening to this and you're like, that's it, we're doing something like this, think outside the box with respect to activities and think about things that you do in your current day-to-day,
right?
And how they can extend there. And this was a great example of that. You said, hey, let's see if I can link up with another Girl Scout troop and listen, it'll be one day, one evening, and at a minimum that's all it could have been, where she goes to one of their meetings, they play, and they have a great time. And then that was a great experience for her, and she met a bunch of 7, 8, 10, 12, 13-year-old girls from Ireland. Oh my
gosh. And they all wrote letters. So now we gave them to our troop. Now we're all going to be pen pals.
Yeah, it's kind of like an adopt a troop now.
Yeah, we're now like sister troops.
Ambassadors.
It was amazing. And it was an opportunity to really talk with people. I think that's one of the big messages too, is really talk with people when you get the chance. We had places where there was the guy operating the ticket booth at the Standing Stones, and there was nobody there. Yeah. He was just one guy. We paid him, and then we had a picnic lunch, and there was no one around, and so we just went and chatted. And he told us all about the Irish sport of hurling.
Yeah, he pulled out his hurling bats and the balls and the helmets. And the helmets. To the girls, and they were playing with them. And
the girls got to have a great time. I mean, it was something that just totally wasn't planned, and it was a highlight, and the Girl Guides was definitely a highlight with the warm and welcoming nature. The other thing, we found out that they were going to have an Irish dance competition. Our daughter does Irish dance at her parent partnership.
But it wasn't just an Irish dance competition, it was the national world championship for this version of Irish step dancing, and it was right in the same town that we were in,
and we could walk there
via back trails, not on the roads. And it was going for the whole time we were there, for like, a week or so. And you were able to attend multiple days of this where our daughter got to see like world champion Irish step dancers.
It was amazing.
Compete, at her age level. They were young. They were like teenagers, I think all the way up to like 19 or something. That was the cap. It was amazing. And like, what a wonderful opportunity. So it wasn't just thinking about, castles or abbeys.
That's a touristy thing.
Or museums. This is, what are people doing at that, locals doing during that time? And that was a great example. Another good example was like when we were at the dance competition, because Irish people are really nice and chatty, that dad who was behind us started talking to us, and we had a conversation for about, I was talking with him for about 45 minutes, and we were, just talking about the country, where to go. And he was giving us ideas, and he said, you look like you're into sports because you're a big guy. Have you tried to go to any of our GAA athletic events? Because in Ireland there's this huge amateur athletic association called the Gaelic Amateur Athletic Association, I think, or something like that, GAA, and they have Gaelic football, soccer, hurling, all the various sports, and these are all amateur sports. And I was like, I had seen all these fields called GAA fields on the Google Maps. Like, what is this? And he started explaining to it, and I got a chance to go see.
You got to go see the county championship.
Yeah, the County Kerry Gaelic football championship that was happening in the town during that time period.
Right, and you got to walk there. So
I got to walk to the stadium and see the game.
It was like normal things. We went to, they had like a indoor soft play area thing that parents would take their kids to on a Saturday.
What we call a jumpy house here in our town.
Right, but it's got climbing structures and all that stuff. We took the kids one day. Yeah. That's something that families would just take their kids and do. So we tried to do.
Oh no, we went to the water park. Right, because we knew there was going to be a day where it was going to pour.
Right. And there was a little indoor water park, and we went.
We got to have a day where there's something we can do all day indoors. And we said, hey, maybe there's a water park. And lo and behold, in about an hour, about 40 minutes north of us, there was a water park in the town in Tralee, right?
Yeah.
And we went to the
Aquadome.
Aquadome, yeah. For the whole day. It was awesome.
Yeah. I think looking beyond just the tourist stuff.
Yeah.
And really, as if you were living there, what would a family do if there's an event going on at the park or something? Just attend. There was Easter egg hunts going on when we were there because it was Easter, but we didn't We didn't get in with one of them fast enough. They were all sold out, but we tried.
They were having the Easter Bunny at like the local mall, and we were like, oh, where's that mall? We were trying to find
right.
it.
So it's just we had to. It was really great. And so definitely look beyond just the tourist stuff, because I think that for all of us, some of the best memories that we have of the trip are the things that we did that weren't for tourists.
Yeah, exactly. And like, I think my favorite day was not that you weren't there, but was the favorite thing. But like when you were gone, I did homeschool at a 12th century ruined abbey, and we sat in front of the grass and we ate our lunch. And we did Math Mammoth, and we did our, Explode the Code, and we were sitting in front of, an 11th century abbey.
Yeah,
I'm like
12th century.
Yeah, 12th century or whatever abbey, and I was like, that's like, I couldn't ask for anything more.
Yeah, it was like enjoyable. A beautiful sunny day, sitting among the wildflowers. The pictures you sent were just gorgeous.
Just gorgeous, yeah.
And it was something that they wouldn't have gotten to experience otherwise.
And it wasn't like a touristy thing. It was like an off the beaten path. We had to scoot over to it a mile or so of scooting on trails. And then we parked it and ate lunch. And it was no big deal. There was no tours. There wasn't like a big expectation.
Right.
Pulled out the homeschool. We were doing it right
free.
there. It was free. And it was awesome. And it was just like what a local would do on the weekend, right? Like, hey, let's scoot down to Muckroast Abbey and hang out and have a picnic.
Right.
And these are the type of things that we were like really thinking about doing that were kid friendly, but also not too heavy in the expectations. So
absolutely. The other thing we wanted to talk about too was that there was just educational opportunities everywhere. So for us in our approach to homeschool, we really focused on math and reading only, because we knew that for everything else, there was no point in bringing along a history curriculum or anything.
And we had just finished the prehistory. Like the week or so before we left.
Yeah, so we just finished a curriculum, but there was no point in bringing that because there was so much for them to learn. There was so much to fill their heads with that we didn't need to bring something extra, right? Beyond all the history stuff, beyond the castles and the standing stones and the abbeys and all of that kind of stuff. There's so much history everywhere. Beyond that, they learned an incredible amount just like at the grocery store.
Exactly.
Just
like
my daughter and I trying to figure out
cookies and stuff.
Well, yeah, my daughter and I trying to figure out how to get the grocery trolleys, as they would say, apart, because you need to put a euro in and then unchain them. It was like they learned that, and then whenever we would go, Mom, did you remember your trolley euro? So that I could like take the carts out, because they were different. When we would go, our daughter would help read the packages. Our daughter advanced so much in reading over the course of this trip by reading all of these signs because she was so interested to know what everything said. What is it? What is that cookie called? What's that sign say? She was so interested that she just read everywhere, and was trying to interpret. So that was really great. Things like going to the grocery store. There was days when we went to all kinds of like home goods stores and walked through them. We went to like Irish Home Depot and walked around.
Well, and in order to do homeschooling, a lot of the time, we didn't bring a lot of stuff. We brought a pretty good amount of things, with dolls and special, Barbies and very limited, but we brought some art supplies, a very, very limited amount of them, but we did. But once we got there, we could settle in. We went to a couple stores and bought, Legos. We bought puzzles. We bought a lot of activities and workbooks and coloring books and things that were their own while they were there. And something that was, we brought the Lego sets home, but like puzzles, we left them there because it's an Airbnb and they had a big stack of puzzles. We just added the Encanto puzzle to the top of their puzzles, right? We got things that they could use and enjoy while we were there. We got more art supplies, more colored pencils, more markers, things of that nature. Going into these stores, looking at all the different types of products. You're right. Like looking at like the different, they didn't have as many Crayola products there.
It was very weird. You could not find crayons. Yeah. There were no crayons. There was tons of markers and tons of colored pencils, but finding actual crayons was very difficult. And they had Crayola products, but again,
and I remember us saying,
crayons.
We're not bringing crayons. I'll just go buy a $2 box of Crayolas when we get there.
No Crayolas. No crayons, specifically crayons to be had. So let's talk about what we packed for homeschool because this is the nitty gritty on our homeschool podcast here. So what we decided to do, if you followed the podcast, we've been doing Right Start Math and All About Reading.
We finished Right Start level C like 2 weeks before we
were
left.
really close there.
We were already close.
And we were in the middle of All About Reading. And one of the things about both of those curriculums is they have a lot of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of stuff involved. And we knew we wanted to slim down so we didn't have to take as much. And further, I really didn't want to take our expensive curriculum with us in case it got like lost in the suitcase or something.
Oh, yeah.
So we decided instead to take
So right.
We decided we have digital versions that are printout that you can print out of Math Mammoth and Explode the Code from our parent partnership.
Yep.
So we thought this is good. We'll just print these out.
We put the Math Mammoth in one binder, and then we had Explode the Code, and then Beyond the Code, which we'll have a review. Beyond the Code level 2.
Right. So Explode the Code is all of your learning your phonics stuff, and Beyond the Code is all the stories that you read.
And
so
then,
both of those pieces.
We also brought for the little one. Get Ready for the Code level A, and so she had some things to do, as well as the Blossom and Root curriculum volume 2, Early Learners volume 2, that we've already done reviews on before, but she is now starting to go through that, and I brought that as well to maybe do a couple activities here and there to achieve a week or two's worth of activities and learning.
So we had these two binders. That was all we needed to bring. We did bring one of our All About Reading reader books,
but it was one that we had already completed.
Right. It was one for practice, and I kept that in my carry-on bags just in case. So we had these couple of binders. We had one book. For Blossom and Root, we went ahead and got digital versions of those books that we knew we had a plan for which ones we could check out from our library. We brought a Samsung Galaxy Tab tablet, which we really like,
and then our old iPad as well.
Right. So we had two tablets. They both had their wireless headphones for those tablets, which was really great. Yep. We loaded those tablets down with both the library apps, and we knew what books we were going to be able to get. We were able to get audiobooks for our older daughter, which is a big part of what she loves to do, is listen to audiobooks. We knew we had that. We were able to download educational apps, because right now we have like Khan Academy Kids, but you have to have a connection. So we downloaded some educational apps that were offline based.
We did PBS Kids, Khan Academy Kids.
PBS Kids app is awesome.
PBS Kids app's awesome. And then I had a couple other little games and learning games and things of that nature as well. Some drawing things as well.
Yeah, some just like simple, like let them freeform draw.
Exactly. Just fun things. And we had both tablets. One was for the younger one was for the older one. And that was really helpful we didn't know how the plane situation was going to be. We didn't know how the drives were going to be. They would want to watch a movie or something. So we had some movies from our digital holds, our digital purchases that we've done.
Yeah, when you buy a Blu-ray and
it
has like the digital code or whatever in it. We had enough of those that we were able to just go and we downloaded them. And we have a Netflix subscription and a Disney Plus.
And then we were able to download locally to the devices. Now.
Right. So we downloaded everything to the devices. We weren't sure what we were going to have access to over there.
Yeah.
So we went ahead and just downloaded everything to the devices.
We knew the place we were staying at had good internet, but we didn't know about in between there.
Right. Because sometimes if you go to another country, like your Netflix subscription doesn't work the same. We just weren't sure what it was going to be. So we downloaded those. So we had movies and shows locally that the kids could watch. So we had that ready.
But also for us as well.
Right. And we had the books that we knew that we could get from the library that were checked out digitally. So we were really kind of prepared. We had plenty of stuff to read. We checked out a couple more like chapter type books to read to the kids from the library, but we didn't bring any other books with us. No. We did bring
everything was digital. We tried. It
was all digital. We did bring a coloring book for each child and some crayons for the airplane. So we had just the few crayons there, and then our older daughter also did have a journal that she had made. She'd filled out a few of the beginning pages about what our trip was going to be like, and she had a journal pack that we brought with us, which had colored pencils, regular pencil, pencil sharpener, and a little glue stick to glue down pictures, brochures and things that we got into her journal. So we brought all of that. And so that was kind of all the supplies we brought. We were like, we're just going to go. We didn't bring paints. We didn't bring markers or any of that. We thought, we're going to go to the store. We're going to see what kind of art supplies they got.
Yep.
I mean, I'm sure we'll be able to find similar stuff.
Well, I thought the idea of the journal was really smart, that we were trying to think of like an activity that she could do every single day with handwriting, copy work, creativity, art, and kind of mash that all into one activity. And this free-form journal that what she ended up doing was, I thought, wonderful. She was able to write every single day about what she saw. She got to talk about her favorite thing. You have this really cool digital printer.
Yeah, so we have a Canon IV2. We'll put a link in the show notes because it's awesome, guys. And so it's a little printer, and it prints little 2x3 pictures.
And you can connect to it from your phone where you take the pictures.
So from your phone, it's a Bluetooth connection, and you just print these little 2x3 pictures, and then they're sticky backed.
Yep.
So she would just peel and stick them right into her journal. Yep. So she had pictures, and then she would write about it, and then she would draw and color with the colored pencils. So she has this really colorful travel journal from our trip, which is just great.
Well, and what was cool is that before we even left, she had started to populate pages of like, her grandparents, her best
pictures of her friends,
of her best friends with their addresses, so that when she got to Ireland, she could get a postcard right on the back of it and mail it to them. So she was really excited about the journal starting up till we left, and then once we got there, it was something that she was doing every single day.
Yeah, it was really terrific. So she did that. That was her writing every day, and also sending the postcards. She hand wrote all those postcards. So that was great writing practice for her, and that's where she did some art. We also did go and we bought drawing paper. We bought new coloring books for them. We bought markers, Play-Doh for the little one that she could do, and we just bought all that stuff. And when we were done, we were able to leave it there. Some of the stuff came back with us, but overall, we just knew that it was okay to have some disposable stuff that, you're not going to keep forever. And that's cool. Like you say, we bought a couple of little puzzles. Lego we found was basically the same price over there as it was here. So it was exciting for them to get us some small sets that they could play with. And then that came home as like a souvenir of their trip. So it kind of worked out really well.
It was funny how, just essentially two $20 sets, really small. One was a Moana set.
Yeah.
I don't know. The other one
was one of the 3-in-1s. No, it was a 3-in-1s.
Yeah, it was the 3-in-1s. Yeah, I love those creator sets. And we got one for the older one and one for the younger one. And then they mixed and matched by the end. And I think we added one more set in. But, that alone, gave them so much quiet time and so much, enjoyment. They got to play at the tables and stuff. It was very good. It was very smart for us to get that when we got there. I was very happy that we actually I know we were kind of hemming like, oh, should we get them some Legos or something? Yeah. It actually, filled in a lot of playtime.
We did bring kind of minimal toys. Each girl has one of those, 18-inch like our generation dolls or whatever, my generation. So they each have their dollies, and then they could each bring a small Barbie case with whatever they could fit in there, which they were each able to cram 2 Barbies and some clothes in there.
A bunch of little pieces.
Right. And they brought a little bag with little clothes and accessories for their bigger dolls. And those were the only real toys they brought, and they were each allowed to bring a stuffy. Well, our little one had 2 stuffies, but they were allowed to bring their stuffies. And that was all that we really brought toy-wise for them. That and the tablets.
It was pretty slim.
It was very slim because we knew once we got there was going to be toy stores. We could go and pick up a $10 puzzle. Yeah. And if we brought a $10 puzzle from home, they probably wouldn't be that excited about it. But the fact that we got it there, they were all interested in having it. So that's kind of how we approached bringing things to keep them busy. And I think that because we didn't have a lot, it really meant that their imagination was larger. There was lots of fort building, lots of role playing. After we went to do a tour at a castle, then they both started playing as if they lived at the castle, and all of that kind of stuff. So I think being a little bit more minimal on the toys was really good.
And also they valued the thing. It's one of those things where they have so many toys at home, and sometimes they forget, oh, I even have that toy, or it's nothing, they're so awash in toys that it can be not as exciting. But once you're there and you're very minimalist in the toys you have, they start to value those. Like I'm not saying there wasn't any fighting or arguing, because, they're kids, and of course there is, but they became very territorial over their things. Like, that's my thing, because I only have so much stuff here, and don't touch my stuff. It was funny how they the toys became worth more to them at that time.
Yeah, it was special. And when we first got there, they didn't play as much with their bigger dolls, but then eventually they were all into it because that's what they had.
Exactly.
And they made up a lot of imaginary games. They did a lot of outside play. We did a lot of playground time. It really worked out nice. So for homeschooling, we just said, we're just going to focus on these pieces. Yep. We made a lot of progress. Our daughter did great with her math. We were able to like do video calls with the grandparents, and she would read over the video calls.
She had to read to her teacher, and
she would read to her teacher and do math problems that way. So everywhere when we were at the store, we were trying to figure out like what to get. When we went to the toy store, for example, we said, okay, here's your dollar limit. You can get as many Lego sets as you want, but that's your dollar limit. So she was like, okay, so she's doing all the math. She's adding up all the different ways she could do it, trying to figure out, how much it would be. And so we just took an opportunity to kind of use math and reading when we were out and about. And then she did these 2 curriculums really diligently every day. Yeah. We made great curriculum progress through both of those core subjects.
I think from a home, like if you're thinking time-wise, we spent maybe an hour a day, maybe. The probably the more challenging portion of it would probably be the Beyond the Code. Because there's a lot more reading involved. So we would spend a little bit more time reading those stories. We would go over them multiple times and really kind of like delve deep into like the words that we had to learn, the sight words. It wasn't necessarily as in line with what we had done with All About Reading. So there were some challenges there. There were some new letter sounds that she hadn't, been exposed to yet. And so she had to learn those a little bit. So we were able to do everything we needed to do in about an hour and 10 minutes at the most. It was very easy to get our math and reading done. And for us, the math was a review, so it was easier. The Explode the Code for her is a review. The Beyond the Code is more in line with where she is. So the 2 curriculums that we were doing were more review focused. And so if you're thinking about going somewhere, think about maybe, shelving your curriculums as they are now and maybe trying this review methodology to make it easier, but also for you to feel like you're getting some mastery out of what they're doing.
Yeah, I think our daughter felt really good about it because when we got back, she was able to go into the next level of the curriculum or go back into the middle of AAR too and really feel like, okay, she felt really confident because they are in a new environment, right? And it took a little bit of time for them to get comfortable. Everyone had to find their working space where they liked to do their reading and where they wanted to work on their math. And, so that was a little bit of a time where we had to kind of figure things out. But we did quickly, and we found how we wanted to do art and what time it was best to read. So, you have to give yourselves a little bit of time to find the right place and the right times. But we focused on the core, and then everywhere that we went, we read everything to them. So if we went to the castle, we looked at the big
on the wall. We read that.
Yeah, we went ahead and there would be a diagram of it. We would talk about it. We talk about the battle that happened there. What do we think they did here? And we learned an incredible amount about the national park, and we looked at all the science behind there's a couple of specific herds of endangered deer that are there and the other animals that lived there. So as we would go through the national park, we were picking out the animals, and we were using the Seek app, which is that Smithsonian free app we've talked about before.
Yeah, we'll put a link in there.
We're using that to go ahead and identify plants and bugs and things that we saw on the trails. So we got some science there. But really, it was just everywhere we went, we read and read and read, and we tried to find out as much as we could. We tried to immerse ourselves in the culture.
We asked a lot of questions as well, like, what do you see there? What's over here? What do you think happened here? What does that sign say? We were constantly asking those questions, or, let the little one lead the way into town and see if she remembers the path to town. Like I did that a few times, how do we get to the park? She goes, oh no, Daddy, it's this way, having her understand spatially where she is. And I think that immersion was, I think, really, really strong, especially for the homeschooling. One of the big things that I noticed growth-wise with our older one was that she became she was able to willingly engage without being coaxed to do something. Like, and I noticed it a few times. One of the most notable ones when we were in the Ross Castle tour. she would ask questions. And she didn't ask us first, Mommy, can I ask a question? She just raised her hand and asked a question. She felt comfortable to do that. I remember in the airport, I gave her $5. I said, hey, can you go buy Daddy a Diet Coke? And she just said, okay. And she just walked across the, the terminal area. And I, it was with an eye shot. I watched her, but she walked right up, picked it up, put it on the counter, gave the guy $5 or €5 and got the change and came back. Her confidence has grown so much. And
yes, I agree.
It was the giving her a little bit of a leash, giving her a little bit more of freedom, especially in a foreign, country, things that are all very new. You would think, she would close in and become a little bit nervous or a little bit scared or anxious. And in fact, it was the opposite. She was like blossoming, and she was feeling comfortable to be more sure of herself. And I think that's one of the big takeaways that I've had out of this was both of my kids really felt like they opened up, and they're not afraid to do new things now or try new foods. Like our oldest daughter just rammed right in there. I want to try this. I want to try that. I want to try this.
She tried the black pudding. I mean,
tried the black pudding.
She tried it all.
She didn't like it. Yeah.
We had a food rating sheet. So we had
that was such a good thing that you did here. Yeah. Tell them about this. This was great.
It was really cool. So we inspired by the Universal Yums box that we always food rate, but we had what the food was, where it was or what brand it was. And then we had a column for each of our initials, so that we could rate on 1 to 5. So everything we got, we went in, we wrote the food, the brand,
and then something really unique, like, this, we did a lot of the cookie ratings.
We didn't do anything like super generic, but like the first time we had fish and chips, when we tried mushy peas, when we had a shepherd's pie, we tried it, all the flavors of biscuits or cookies.
All the digestives that
we ate a lot of cookies, y'all, and they were good. So there was a lot of, all the hazelnut things, all the Nutella-based things. So every time we were there, if we would get something new or a new kind of chips, there was chips that actually had shamrock extract in them. They were sour cream and onion chip, guys. They were really good. Anyway, this was really fun because it was something that we could really keep, and it encouraged our kids to try a lot of new foods. And even our little one, she tried a lot of foods. The little one tried the black pudding first.
What? Because she thought it was actually chocolate pudding. I think that's what she thought it was.
Maybe so, but she tried it first, and she was like, "No, I don't like this." But she tried other things. She didn't stop. They didn't stop. I agree with you. Their confidence, going to the playground and knowing they were all different kids. When the very first day we went to the playground, they were kind of like, I don't know. And then after that, they started making friends. They started playing imaginary games at the playground with other kids. They did feel confident talking to adults. And we did kind of push them at the beginning, not the little one, obviously, but our older daughter, to, engage with people.
It's okay. It's okay to talk.
It was okay. It was okay to order her own food at the restaurant, things like that. And I really agree with you. We saw so much blossoming by the time we did the Girl Guides at the very end of the trip.
Yeah.
And I think by that time, she felt so confident in just talking to people. Yeah. And sharing that she's from America and how things are different. And that was really, really great that they were able to do that. I think that the cultural immersion was just wonderful. And she knows a lot now about Irish history. We went to a couple of museums where we learned about the Easter Uprising, and we learned about British occupation at different times, and about exploration in Antarctica. One of the famous explorers was from there.
Tom Crean.
And so we learned about that. We learned about medieval life and what that was like
we learned that every abbey was destroyed by Cromwell.
Cromwell destroyed it all. So we learned a lot about, we went to a sheepdog demonstration where we got to see the sheepdog herd the sheep around the mountain by whistle commands and stuff. That was really cool. They learned a lot about that. They learned something about sheep and animal husbandry, and got to pet baby lambs and see where monks lived in the 6th century. Just like, it was some crazy, crazy stuff that we got to do, and they learned so much. So I think my takeaway that I'd want to give to you all about this is, if you're planning to homeschool on a long trip like this, which we think it was amazing, we highly recommend it, don't bring too much.
Yeah.
Focus on your core stuff and let the rest of it just be everything that you've got to gather from there.
Unless you're choosing to go full-time on the road, that's a different thing. But if you're going to short-term, even if you're going a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a month like we did, you can fit in your homeschool during this time, but you just make it slim.
focus on the core stuff, and the rest of all of that.
Lean in to the location.
We did a bunch of science stuff based on the plants and animals and stuff that were there. So I don't feel like we missed out on any subject. We just, it was a break from your regularly scheduled programming. And what was really different about this, when we went on our Europe trip for 4 weeks, before we had kids, by like that third week, we were like, let's go home. I want to go home. And on this trip, by the time the trip ended, we felt like we were excited to go home, but we weren't like fatigued.
It felt like home, and a little bit it felt like, okay,
the kids were actually sad to leave the townhouse when we did. And we felt like at the end of it, we were like, oh man, I'm really looking forward to getting home, because there's no place like home, right? We missed it. But we were never in our entire trip travel fatigued, because there was always time to have a sleep in, to go to the playground, to go grocery shopping. The cooking there was one of the most wonderful things, and our kids cooked with us, and our daughter made a cake one day.
Well, that's the thing, that it
was just great.
When you do a long trip like this, you are going to be making a lot of your meals there, because you just can't afford to buy meals 3 times a day.
And who would want to eat out with little kids all the time?
All the time. And so
exhausting.
We were eating out maybe once a day for one meal.
Like we'll grab lunch or
grab dinner or whatever. And so we were making meals, so we had to go to the grocery store and find our regular foods. Right. They don't have tacos in Ireland. The Boozes eat a lot of tacos.
Yeah, that was a little. Well, I mean, they had hard taco shells, and
we do corn tortillas.
They didn't have corn tortillas. They were like a corn flour mix.
It was not the same.
It was not the same. It's the first thing we ate when we got back was Mexican food. But we found that we found some of our favorite products. We found our favorite kind of chips, and the beef and the dairy was amazing. They have lots of Italian products there that you can get really easily. Yeah. So we were able to get lots of fresh mozzarella and other things like that.
We were able to make cool sandwiches.
So it was cool, because we were cooking there. The first thing I made there was a full breakfast with Irish potatoes and rashers and eggs, and it was wonderful. It's like every meal that you had was still different, because it was there with their ingredients, and we all came up with our favorite things, our favorite way to shop at the grocery store. We did not bring things like shampoos and conditioners. We bought all that stuff. Yeah. So we all determined like our favorite kinds of different things, and all of that was learning too. So it's funny when people ask our daughter, like, what was the best part? And she's like, oh, the milk chocolate digestives, were the best part or whatever. And people are like, what? Like, wasn't it going to a castle? And she's like, the playground had a trampoline in the ground. Like the things she remembers seem small. Yeah. Well, we went on a ferry walk, and there was little fairy houses on the trail.
Yeah, but that park we went to a dozen times.
Exactly.
Right. So it was very impactful for her.
It stood out for them that like, oh yeah, the funniest thing was when mommy and sister went on the zip line together at the park, that's the stuff that stands out. And everyone here feels like that's just so normal. But for them, they were developing their own new normal there. Yeah. So anyway, this was a little long, but we wanted to. So
this is going to be part 1 of the, what we did. And then next week, on Monday, we're going to have an episode about successfully traveling, because it was a success. Because
it was a success. Everyone has survived.
We left with all of our stuff and the children, and we came back with all of our stuff plus some and our children. So nothing bad happened. So we can say we successfully traveled international, and we're going to give you some tips and tricks and talk about some products and the way we packed. And
there was a lot to the science of the packing and the documentation and gotchas and
all the documentation.
There was a lot of stuff there's really good general guidance wherever you're going to go for traveling internationally. So stay tuned for that. Yep. We hope that you stick around, and we are excited to be back. Thanks so much for joining us today and making us a part of your homeschool journey. Please engage with us on social media. Join our Homeschool Together podcast group on Facebook, and find us at Homeschool Together Podcast on Instagram. We'd love to hear your feedback, questions, and recommendations. Until next time,
happy homeschooling!